Morning, folks. Brian here, Geomagnetic Earth Watch on Tuesday, June 7, 2023 on our planet. Hope you're all well. Just a little bit of a talk, or it might be a little bit long, I don't know, before I go on and do my vegetable gardening work. So welcome to the several new subscribers that just came here. I'm assuming you saw my comments in somebody else's YouTube channel. Respectful comment. I'll do a little bit of brief education. What's going on? So when you have a theory based on your belief, based on observations, research, as well as your understanding of scripture, a timeline of events expected to happen. And when you outline what you think is going to be happening, the signs, what to expect, and you begin to see those signs manifest, well, let's see. So I base my suppositions on observations, critical thinking, maturity. I don't go off in some wild tangent, conspiracies, unsubstantiated claims. Unfortunately, there are those who do. Just as there are fear porners, fraudsters, conmen, people who use exaggerated headlines for viewership, and they mislead you. They don't give you all the information. Anyway, I'll explain to you what I think is happening. Many of you already are into my head. So I'll open that door for you. Every 12,000 years, the planet goes through what's called the geomagnetic excursion, whereby the geomagnetic poles, not the axial poles, the geomagnetic poles go on an excursion. They leave their more or less stable position. Magnetic poles always meander. They all tool around, right? But every 12,000 years, they'll take off. In 1903, magnetic north was last in Nunavut, Canada. That's when it started its straight of line excursion. It is now already crossed over the top of the planet and is heading towards Siberia. Magnetic south has already left continental Antarctica and is in the ocean between Antarctica and Australia. So our magnetic field is generated from within the outer core of our planet. One moment. I'm not talking about the axial poles in which the planet rotates around. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the geomagnetic poles. Now, in order to have a 100% full protective geomagnetic field, which protects us from the harmful radiation, cosmic rays, and ultraviolet radiation, they should be in more or less antipodal opposite positions to one another. So the magnetic field leaves the south magnetic field and circles our planet, comes back in through the north polar cusp, as long as they're antipodal. 100% full strength. However, we're now at that cycle. One moment, please. I've got a bunch of magma leaking out my orange. Quite literally, folks. Fires. Anyway. Excursion. Magnetic north is already off the waters of Siberia. It is heading towards central Siberia. Magnetic south has already left continental. They are coming together, converging. Now, there's two things geomagnetic excursion, and a full polarity reversal magnetic pole flip. It doesn't matter which one it's going to be. It doesn't. What matters right now is where they are right now, and it is greatly destabilized and weakened our protective magnetosphere. I'm going to add something, another supposition of mine. Now, the further apart the distance between the magnetic poles, the weaker the magnetic field over those regions of the planet. Okay. The further apart the distance between the magnetic poles, the weaker the protection over that area. Now, during geomagnetic excursions, we can have multiple norths, multiple souths. What's on the other side of this point here? So the meeting point, if they continue, the meeting point is somewhere around the region of the Bay of Bengal, Indian Ocean on the west side of Sumatra, Indonesia, if they continue. Please, folks. It doesn't happen to something that doesn't exist, the 40-degree mark. Okay. Please. This process, as it continues, it can still take hundreds of years left yet. Continue. What's on the other side? Canada, United States, South America. This is where our jet streams have gone beyond meridional, beyond chaotic. This is where it looks like they're beginning to completely collapse. Canada, United States, South America, South Atlantic anomaly. More cosmic radiation coming in. More ultraviolet radiation coming in. Hope you understood that. Now comes into the question, what might be causing it? If you are a believer, as I am, and NASA confirmed this in 1979, maybe shortly after they realized, oops, maybe we shouldn't have said that. Cover story. If you believe in a large celestial body coming in within our orbital plane, I don't know, let's call it biblical wormwood, then you have to understand the gravitational and electromagnetic effect it's going to have on the planets of our solar system, including ours, the pull on the outer core expansion. I'll use this analogy a lot. Okay, mantle plumes are columns of harder magmatic material rising up. Mantle plumes are anchored to the outer core of the planet where our magnetic field is generated from. Mantle plumes rise up to the underside of the lithosphere, the upper layer of the Earth. As it does, we have the mantle plume tail, we have the mantle plume head. It can expand into thousands of kilometers in diameter. It can have branches, arms, nodes, pushing up underneath the lithosphere. This brings into another term that is commonly used, lithospheric melting. Melting of the underside of the lithosphere as the heat is penetrating and coming up to the crust. I have demonstrated, starting into last year, my suggestion of an activated mantle plume below and around Australia through numerous events. I then questioned the timing before we would start seeing something similar happening underneath North America. The Earth's crust. Our tsunami buoys are anchored to the ocean floor. If we're going to have an uplift or subsidence, those tsunami boys are going to go into motion, such as they do periodically. This is why in my playlist I have a separate section only for tsunami boys. And as I have so demonstrated off the northeast coast of North America, periodically we have two that go into motion. What's in between the two? We have a line of undersea mounts in the oceans between Massachusetts and Nova Scotia. Undersea mounts, volcanoes. Periodically, one here off the coast of Nova Scotia and one here on the other side goes into motion all by themselves in the absence of earthquakes. Why? Like yesterday, they went off in Nova Scotia. I've been waiting for that one. Waiting. Theory. I say to myself, what's going to happen next? Watch for that buoy. It's going to go off. What am I saying next? Something has already happened 3 or 4 times this year. There were a series of magnitude 4+ earthquakes off the coast of Nova Scotia, right where that buoy is. I suggest, I don't know, sometime in the near future, there might be another earthquake in the ocean between Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. So when I have a theory, I'm going to give you my observations. I'm not going to go off in some wild tangent. I'm not going to be some lunatic. Terrorists invading Canada, setting Canada on fire. Oh, Western Canada is all on fire. Bullshit. I live in Western Canada. Yeah, we have some wildfires going. We're not all totally engulfed. Not yet. So I'll give you my observations next. Heat anomalies. So first of all, seismic activity, Buffalo, New York, off the coast of Nova Scotia. The southern tip of Nova Scotia, the day or two before the wildfire breaks out. After that earthquake off the southern tip of Nova Scotia, there was a heat anomaly detected in the bottom of the Bay of Fundy. Then poof, wildfire. Then we had another heat anomaly on the continental shelf between Massachusetts and Nova Scotia. Increase in seismic activities throughout Quebec, including the St. Lawrence Seaway, quite a few of them. Heat anomalies detected in the waters, lakes, rivers. Heat detections before wildfires. Before I continue, I want you to do a little bit of homework for yourself. I want you to get onto Google Earth. And I want you to take a look at Quebec. Now, yes, I saw that video by somebody else. All those fires that seemingly broke out at the same time. Yes, they all happened on the same day. Showing on NextLab satellite and radar. However, you can manually control that map. And what he did, he moved the cursor back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Okay. He did not show you the time stamp to clearly show that not every single fire all started at the same time. Yes, at the same day, but not at the same time. Before I continue, I want you to take a look at Quebec. I want you to pay attention, please. Tell me what you do not see. So what did you see and what did you not see? For 99% of what it just showed you, you didn't see a single road, you didn't see a single trail. You saw tens of thousands of lakes and other waterways, ponds, streams, rivers, where these fires started. You're trying to tell me that an invasion of terrorists got into those regions with no vehicle access, period, carrying accelerants, large volumes of accelerants to start all those fires in one day? Is that what you're trying to tell me? An invasion of terrorist arsonists with military precision, carrying large amounts of accelerants to start all those fires. Or are you trying to tell me that there was a whole bunch of satellites that just decided to target far remote regions? Woo! Anyway, let's try and keep this mature as best as I can. So I base my suppositions on observations, critical thinking, maturity, and not going off in some wild, unsubstantiated conspiracies. And again, unfortunately, there's ones who just fly off the handle, unfounded, wild claims. Others use fear porn. Others are frauds and con men. Others use exaggerated headlines for viewerships. The sad thing is, most of the people flock to them and believe it. So what do I think is happening? I'm not sure if I just said it. I'll say it again, or maybe the first time. I'm tired, okay? If you're a believer in Scripture, you had to believe in biblical wormwood. You also have to have the understanding that if there's a large celestial body coming in with our orbital plane, the gravitational and electromagnetic influence it's going to have on our planet, pulling on the outer core, pulling up on that magma coming up, lithosphere melting, coming through. Anyway, that's my belief. I stand with it. So continuing, I can give you lots of my observations daily, weekly. Heat anomalies, heat detections before fires, increase in seismic activity that no one else is going to report on. I'll give you my supposition that we have an activated mantle plume. Tsunami boys going into motion on either side of, if this is the undersea mounts off the coast of New York, one here, tsunami boy, every once in a while they're going to go into motion, right? Let's continue. Western Canada. Don't tell me all the Western Canada's on fire. Bullshit. It's my province. I personally toured some of these areas. Yes, we have some wildfires starting in volcanic regions. So again, I personally tour some of these areas. I don't just use one satellite service like someone does, NextLab satellite radar. I'll use a whole combination to gather my information. And they give you pinpoint accuracy, longitude and latitude, and I'll take that information and I'll use it in Google Earth. And on some of them, if they're close enough to me, I'll go right in there and I'll take a look. So one in my backyard, not literally, but just down the highway, there were a group of maybe about 8 separate location signatures within a 1 kilometer radius. I'll look out my window. Hey, wow, there's a fire there. Let's go through the conditions of that day. Absolutely clear. No lightning. Check the coordinates. Approximately 350 feet up the slope, including a steep embankment off the side of a highway. First satellite acquisition time 0343 hours. The rest 11:09 a.m. Winds. 2 small fires here. The winds are blowing in that direction. 2 other heat anomalies 1 kilometer that way. I drive right up there. There's no fires. Yes, that's a confirmed fire. Temperature about 20 degrees Celsius. Not hot. On our highways, we have highway cams. I can go on that cam feed myself. I can check this camera here. I can check this camera here. I can see how many, if any, cars were traveling that distance, and if one car started here but didn't get to here for some time later. I don't think anybody climbs up 350 feet, including up a steep embankment, to start a fire here. No invading terrorists, sorry. No laser beams from space, sorry. And other locations that I personally check. But folks, we have another 4 to 5 months left of this hard, dry drought conditions. We ain't seen nothing yet. If my theory is true, you're going to wish it was terrorists. Because that's something that can be monitored, controlled, and stopped. You cannot stop this. You cannot stop the outer core expansion. You cannot stop the approach of a large celestial body coming in. So that's my theory of the ignition sources. Did I mention the weak magnetic field lines over Canada and northern Canada? Very weak. Therefore, we have increased levels of cosmic radiation and ultraviolet radiation coming in. So, I've seen this happen many a times. I've got several videos. If the sun is here, okay. If this is North America, the sun is here. In the nighttime, for the most part, nothing happens. Those fires break out in Quebec. They happened as the sun rotated into the solar wind stream, hitting the Earth through the weak magnetic field lines over Canada and northern Canada. Look at the satellite acquisition time of all those fires in Quebec. They all started as the planet rotated into the sun-facing solar winds. I've seen this happen many a times. I've seen it happen in 2018 as well as last year over Idaho. Idaho sits over the magma reservoir, not the chamber, the magma reservoir for Yellowstone. I've seen this happen a great many a times in California over Sutter Buttes, Yuba City. Lots of times. I got lots of videos. I'll give you my observations. You give me your observations that it's a massive terrorist attack setting all these fires. I got a bridge on Mars over the polar ice caps to sell you. Let's continue. So if this is true, then these events are only going to accelerate, increase in frequency and amplitude. So if all you are thinking and preparing for is an axial shift or a crustal displacement, if that's all you're preparing yourself for, donating your money for. You are not prepared for the series of events to happen before then, which will affect you. You will be dead because you're not prepared for it. You're also not prepared spiritually. You're not prepared mentally. You're not prepared practically. You're not prepared for the earthquakes in diverse places, the volcanic eruptions, not 1, 2, 3, not 10, probably a whole bunch more. You're not prepared for the massive amount of radiations that's going to be coming in, especially over Canada, the United States. You're not prepared for the massive, violent weather events that's going to be hitting us because our jet streams have gone beyond meridional. They're totally chaotic, right? You can't discern anything. Our weather is based on the jet streams. You're not prepared for that. When I have time, I'll do a separate video on preparedness and what you should have. For example, me, I always keep my truck topped off gas. If I think I can get 10 bucks worth, I'll go put 10 bucks worth, and I'm still going to have a half dozen cans. Why? When a wildfire hits, for example, in my region, like last year, I'm not going to be one of the many fools lined up at the gas stations waiting to get empty gas. I'm going to be long gone. Do you have your bug out bags in your house? And do you have a duplicate set in your vehicle? You might be in the highway when something happens. Your bug out bag's no good sitting in the front door of your house. What do you have in it? Is it hazard specific? Assess your own area. Could you have a wildfire or a volcanic eruption? Do you have your PPE, personal protective equipment? Do you have not just dust masks, but do you have half face piece respirators at least with cartridges? Do you have eye protection, goggles? On your backpacks, do you have a flashing strobe light that clips on? You have one backpack per kid. You want to be able to see your kid in poor visibility, smoke, dust. Other flashlights clip on. Do you have a mini air horn? Do you know the international distress signal, 3 blasts of anything? Do you have all these things? Are you prepared? Do you know your primary and secondary routes of escape? You're not going to be using your primary route because everybody else is going to be doing that. Do you know your secondary routes of escape and getting out of your region? Have you gone through it all? How many people in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Quebec so far? Alberta, Northern British Columbia, Northwest Territories so far. Have that plan. Should you not? What do you have in your vehicle ready to go? Lots of water, maybe some backup food. If you have to leave your vehicle, do you have your backpacks ready to go? Do you have what you need? If I have time, I'll do a separate video on that. Anyway. What to expect, continuing. I know what to expect. I have my suppositions. I'm waiting for the next magnitude 4+ earthquake off the coast of Nova Scotia again. I'm waiting for some more heat signatures coming up. I am waiting for NASA to continue what they're doing, and they're not showing any information whatsoever for Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. They cut the feed. They're not showing nothing. It's like there's no more fires. There's nothing happening there. That's what I'm waiting for. Assess your own area, folks. Your ins and outs. Where are your children going to be when an event strikes? Can you get to them? Do they know how to safely get to home? Are they at school or are they at play? A whole bunch of things to think of. Anyway, my vegetables are waiting for me. Later, eh?